Alright, welcome back to the Backmarker Update. Today we're going to be previewing the 2024 IndyCar season with the first race at St. Petersburg, Florida, at the St. Petersburg Road Course. So we're going to be going over how we are going to do these backmarker formats. I'm going to look at our backmarkers that we're going to be watching. We'll be watching 8 full-time teams, and any part-time teams as well will be counted as backmarkers for now. And we will go over, of course, the regular schedule of a backmarker update. We'll look at the highlights. As you'll see here, there's no highlights because the race hasn't happened yet. But when the race happens, I'll go get clips of the highlights and we'll go over the highlights together. Then we'll look at the winner of the race and the finishing results of the backmarkers. We'll go over the backmarkers individually later on. But we'll also look at cautions. Cautions can be debris cautions, incidents, wrecks, mechanical failures, weather delays, delay of race, or the race is shortened because of rain or weather. We'll look at that. On the right hand side, we have the penalty box, basically pit road penalties, mechanical penalties, technical inspection failures that cause disqualification after the race, or anything on track or off track that causes a driver or team member suspension. After that, we'll look at the individual placement of the 8 slowest full-time teams of the roster, and of course the 8 and because for the first race nothing has happened on track yet for me to know which teams will perform the worst, I have selected the 8 slowest teams from last year and put them on the backmarker list for right now. Every 3 races we will change this, we'll update this. Let's say Santonio Ferrucci in the number 14, who's starting 14th for AJ Foyt Racing. Let's say he actually doubles his level of talent and takes out a few positions. Let's say he is currently, I'd say, 14th in the standings. Well, since there's 27 full-time teams and he is currently not 19th out of 27th, which is what points position he finished last year, he will move up, and the driver who is pushed down to 19th because of Santonio Ferrucci's sudden appearance of talent will be counted as a backmarker instead of Ferrucci. So let's move on past all of the other 7 drivers, go over them a little bit, and then we'll move on to the final section of our backmarker update. So the number 18 for Jack Harvey, starting at 27th, lowest car on the grid, but of course it's Dale Coyne Racing, so what do you expect? Always a backmarker team is Dale Coyne. Dale Coyne has never, ever not been a backmarker team. Dale Coyne starting 27th is pretty per usual. I mean, it's kind of surprising that their other car, the 51, isn't starting 26th, but 25th is also Dale Coyne level backmarker mediocrity. But Jack Harvey was the worst full-time driver last year in terms of points. Even the Dale Coyne car, even the Rick Ware Dale Coyne car managed to pass him in points, and he was driving for Ray Hall. So I mean, he's not going to do anything this season. Probably going to, now that he's in Dale Coyne equipment and not Ray Hall equipment, probably going to be the worst full-time driver of the season. And he's not even racing full-time unless he can get a few sponsorships, but I don't think he's going to be racing full-time, so he's just going to be driving that 18 to new levels of mediocrity. As for the 20 of Christian Rasmussen of Ed Carpenter Racing, starting 21st is not bad for an Ed Carpenter car. Usually they're in the back with the Dale Coyne cars for the start, but really for Christian Rasmussen, if he can get a points position that's higher than like 20th, if he can get in the top 20 with an Ed Carpenter car, that's gonna be a good building step for him at this point. However, the 21 of Rinus VeeKay, ex-Formula 1 driver Rinus VeeKay, starting 7th for Ed Carpenter Racing, that shows he's got talent. But of course, he's a former F1 driver, so I mean, if he's starting 7th in an Ed Carpenter car, you know he means business. I expect VeeKay to do pretty well in IndyCar. Honestly, if he's not top 10 in points by race 3 and I switch him out for another driver, I'm going to be very surprised, because there's, even in an Ed Carpenter car, it's an Ed Carpenter car with a former F1 driver in it. So I mean, even Ed Carpenter can't be that bad for a former F1 driver. Now, is he going to win races? That remains to be seen. IndyCar, he could probably sneak a win at one of the big tracks, but I don't think or one of the road courses, but I don't think he's going to be winning in his first race back. Love to see it, but I mean, that's pretty unlikely. But hope to see him get some good top 10s. If he's not top 10 in points in 3 races, I'm going to be very surprised. All right, moving on to the 30 of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing for Pietro Fittipaldi. Starting second worst on the grid is not a good start, but of course, I mean, Pietro Fittipaldi is kind of just picking up from where Jack Harvey left off. Jack Harvey ran this car full-time last year and finished worst out of the full-time contenders in the third entry for Rahal. So really, Fittipaldi just has to finish better than last place in the full-time driver stint, and he will be better. Moving on to the best name in IndyCar, and no, that is not Scott Dixon or Pato O'Ward. No, it is actually Stingray Robb. Stingray Robb has the best name of any person in IndyCar currently. He's driving the 41 for AJ Foyt, starting 24th. Since he came from Dale Coyne, which is basically the worst team on the grid, the fact that he's finishing higher than both Dale Coyne cars kind of says to me that, yeah, people said before that he was more talented than the equipment. I always thought he was more talented than the equipment. He's getting a step up, moving to AJ Foyt, actually 2 steps up. A step up from Dale Coyne is Ed Carpenter, so a step above that would be AJ Foyt. So 2 steps up, 2 steps forward. Hopefully Robb does better than, I guess, Dale Coyne material. If he can get a top 20 points, then I'd consider that a win for him at this point. Moving on to the second Dale Coyne car, Colin Braun comes from the NASCAR Infinity Series and the the Motocross Series to IndyCar to make 1 start for Dale Coyne Racing, basically just filling out that 51 since they have no full-time driver. Starting 25th, third worst driver in the field. He's only here for 1 start. I mean, at this point, just finish the race. That's the only thing you can do because you're driving basically the second worst car on the grid. Actually, no, you're the worst car on the grid. I forgot. The 51 is the Rick Ware Dale Coyne car, so that means not even is it a full-time Dale Coyne car. It's literally shared with an even worse team, Rick Ware Racing. So I mean, yeah, the 51 is the worst car in the field. So only starting 1 race, basically driving the 51 car just for 1 race. I mean, if you finish the race, then I can count that as a success. And finally, the 78 of Austin Canapino, driving for JHR. I mean, starting 20th. If you can finish in the top 15, I consider that a success. But otherwise, that 78 car is just trying to stay alive at this point. Because it's going to run basically 20th to 15th to 20th, or 15th to 25th if we're more accurate. But just keep that out of the wall and try and survive the race, and you'll be good enough to call it a success in my book. But that is our 8 backmarker teams in 3 races. Maybe we'll switch out when VK gets in the top 10 in points. But other than that, we'll move on to the final part. The final part of the backmarker update, blank for now, but it would be looking at the top 10 positions in points, seeing if any of our backmarker cars make it in. If VK's in the top 10, that'd be awesome. But otherwise, this will just show the top 10 in points, and then we'll just give a brief recap of who's ahead in the standings, and then that'll be the end. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you like, dislike if you don't, subscribe if you like it. I'll see you guys next time. Toodaloo!